at Infinity Learn by Shri Chaitanya YouTube channel. Students, my name is Kiran Chaudhary and I am your biology faculty at Infinity Learn. Let us start the discussion on what we have to study in today's class. So see students, today we have come to lecture 13 on the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. So let us see what we have to discuss in this lecture. This lecture will revolve around the concepts of seed. Yes, as you can see on the board, today we will have a discussion on seed. So before seeds, students, we have covered all the concepts before seed in the previous 12 lectures on this chapter, right? Before I start making you understand what are the concepts of seed, I want to give you one very important information, that is you can use Kiran 40 code KIRAN 40 to avail 40% discount on the various courses that we offer at infinitylearn.com website. Go and check out and use this code to get a straight 40% discount. Now without doing a further delay, let me start what I have to discuss in today's lecture related to seed. सी स्टूडेंट्स, सीड की बात करते हैं और उससे पहले मैं आपको ये बताना चाहूँगी कि अब तक के जो लेक्चर्स में हमने कवर किया वो सीड से पहले वाला पार्ट या सीड से पहले वाला हिस्सा एम्ब्रायो तक था. आई होप दिस मच इज़ क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू. तो हम सीड जो आपके इस चैप्टर के जिस टॉपिक के अंदर आता है वो है पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड इवेंट. सो पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड इवेंट में हमने अभी तक क्या क्या डिस्कस कर लिया है. एंडोस्पर्म डिस्कस कर लिया है और हमने एम्ब्रायो भी डिस्कस कर लिया है और आज हम लोग अपना डिस्कशन उसी को आगे बढ़ाएंगे एंड वी विल डिस्कस व्हाट वी विल डिस्कस सीड. सी स्टूडेंट्स, इफ वी टॉक अबाउट फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स, इफ वी टॉक अबाउट एंजियोस्पर्मिक प्लांट्स, in these plants, seed is actually the final product of the sexual reproduction. Remember, in my previous 12 lectures, I have been talking again and again on sexual reproduction in flowering plant, where I was making a point to make you understand that in this chapter, we will try to understand how male and female gamete fuses in order to form zygote that will develop into an embryo, and finally the result of sexual reproduction in flowering plants will lead to the formation of seed, and hence seed is the final product of sexual reproduction. There's another name that is given to seed, and that is fertilized ovules. Yes students, what are seeds? Seeds are known as fertilized ovule. Why this name or why this term fertilized ovule is given? Let us see. Hello Sunil, good evening. Now let us continue our discussion on fertilized ovule. Let me know wherever you are unable to follow. I would love to address your doubts. So why are we calling seeds as a fertilized ovule? Right? So try to recall when I was teaching you about ovule. At that point of time, I have shown you one very well labeled diagram of ovule, and there you saw in the middle there was embryo sac. Embryo sac was actually covered by a mass of cell known as nucellus, right? And that nucellus was in return covered by what? It was covered by integuments, the protective layers, right? There was also funicle, hilum. These were the parts that we discussed when I was explaining you about ovule. So see students, an ovule, listen this very carefully. I'm trying to make you understand why are we calling seeds as fertilized ovule. So remember, inside an ovule there is what? There is an embryo sac. Inside embryo sac, what is there? There is female gamete, that is the egg cell, right? So when this embryo sac or the ovule get fertilized, what does that mean? Fertilization of ovule or fertilization of embryo sac means entry of the pollen tube through which male gamete will enter the embryo sac and will fuse one male gamete with the female gamete and another male gamete with the two polar nuclei present in the central cell, right. So, when there is fusion between male gamete and female gamete inside an embryo sac that is present inside an ovule, what happens? There is a formation of zygote, there is a formation of embryo, and finally there is a formation of seed. Yes, my lovely students, I really hope now you are able to understand this very simple concept that why seeds are termed as fertilized ovules, because seed will be formed after the embryo sac present in the ovule get fertilized. That is fusion between male and female gametes. Clear? I hope this term is crystal clear to all of you. Please let me know in the comment section if there is still any one of you are not clear about this fact that seeds are termed as fertilized ovules. Let us see the next point. Seeds are formed inside fruits. So, see students, what type of a plants we are discussing? We are discussing about flowering plants, we are discussing about angiospermic plants, and this is the characteristics of angiospermic plants or flowering plants, that in them fruits are produced. So, please make it a point that in flowering plants or angiospermic plants, seeds will be produced or formed or will be present inside fruits, right. I hope these are very simple concepts and facts that you must have understood by now. Now, let us see what we need to understand on the next slide. Yeah. So, now these were the facts. On the previous slide, we discussed few simple facts about seed. In that, one very important was fertilized ovule. Please remember this part. Now, let us see on this slide what are the various parts or the major parts of seeds look like, right. So, a typical seed consists of three parts or three regions, I can say. What are these three regions? There will be seed coat that will be present outside the seed. Remember students, seed coat is the outermost covering, the protective covering, the tough layer of a seed, and these seed coats are actually produced from the integuments of the ovule. Remember, seed is a fertilized ovule, right? Since seed is a fertilized ovule, that means now the parts of the ovule will also become parts of the seed. Now, talking about the seed coat, please notice this point very clearly, that the seed coat is formed from the integuments. The integuments of the ovule becomes thick, becomes hard, becomes tough, and forms the outer covering or protective covering of the seed. So, seed coat formed from integuments, right. There is one more point I want you to understand students. If you remember the structure of ovule, there was a part known as micropile. So, micropile in an ovule is a region where integuments are absent, right, and through micropile only in majority of the flowering plants or angiospermic plants, pollen tube will enter through micropile inside the ovule and then into the embryo sac, right. So, this micropile region of the ovule persists as a small pore or a hole in a seed coat. Yes students, please remember this point that I am discussing about what? I am discussing about micropile. So, micropile will persist as a small hole or as a small pore or as a small pore in seed coat, right? So, this micropile region that was there in the ovule where integuments were absent, this micropilar region will exist as a small pore or a small opening inside a seed coat. Now, what function or role this micropile will play by being persistent in a seed coat? So, remember students, the answer is very simple. So, is there anything anybody wants to ask? Okay, perfect. So, coming back to the discussion part, what is the function of this micropile? So, see students, these micropile which persist as a small pore in the seed coat will facilitate the entry of oxygen and water. Yes, so inside a seed, water and oxygen will enter, right? So, inside a seed, oxygen and water will enter through this micropile, through this pore that persists in the seed coat. I hope now the function of the micropile which is persistent in the seed coat as a small pore is clear. What is the function? It will help in the entry or the passage, it will give the passage for oxygen and water. And why oxygen and water are important to the seed? The answer is obvious, that this water and oxygen will be required by this particular seed during its seed germination phase. So, without water and without oxygen, it won't be possible for the seed to germinate. Hence, this micropile which persists as a small pore in the seed coat facilitate this entry of oxygen and water inside seed. Tell me, is this much clear to all of you or not? Is there anyone who want me to explain anything in more detail? Please let me know. Okay, now coming to the cotyledons part. So, see students, these cotyledons are actually what? These cotyledons are actually very simple structure and they exist as a swollen part inside a seed where food material is stored, specifically talking about leguminous seeds, right? So, what are cotyledons? Cotyledons are the simple structures that exist as a that can be seen as a swollen part or swollen form of the or swollen section of the seed. I hope this much is clear. Next is what? Next is the embryonal axis. So, see students, inside a seed, the embryonal axis, if we talk about, the upper portion of the embryonal axis terminates, upper portion that is above the level of the cotyledons will terminate into plumule that will form shoot tip, right? And the next, if we talk about the lower portion, the portion of the embryonal axis below the level of the cotyledon will terminate into root tip or radicle of the future plant. I hope this much is clear, that what are the parts that exist in a typical seed? It is one, what it is? It is seed coat, it is cotyledons and it is embryonal axis, right? And with the help of this beautiful image, you can also understand where is the seed coat present, where is the cotyledon present, right? And how, what? And this, see students, this hypocotyle and epicotyle, if you remember from my previous lecture, you can relate that epicotyle and hypocotyle are actually what? These are the parts or regions of embryonal axis that persist inside a seed. Tell me, is there any doubt? Okay, completely clear. Thank you, Sunil. Let us move to the next concept. Yeah. So, now what we need to do is, till here we have covered what is a seed, what are the facts related to seed, how does a typical seed look like, what are the various parts that are present in a typical seed and what are their functions, right? We have discussed this much. Now, the time has come to understand what are the types of seed that exist, right? So, right now I will explain you types of seeds based on the presence or absence of endosperm in them, right? I repeat myself, students, now we will categorize the seeds into categories, right? But this categorization or the type of seeds will be based on presence and absence of endosperm in them. And not to forget, I have been explaining you this again and again, that what is an endosperm? Endosperm is a mass of cell. It is a tissue, right? A tissue whose cells possess reserve food material. Yes, students, if you remember from my lecture number, I think it was 11, where I was explaining you about endosperm. Endosperm is a tissue, it is made up of cells, and the cells of the endosperm possess what? They possess food. They possess storage of food material. So, food is stored in the cells of endosperm. And why food is stored in the cells of endosperm? So that this food, the stored food of the endospermal cells can be utilized by the developing embryo, right? For the proper development of embryo, or for the proper development of a mature embryo, there is a requirement of food. So, food is one of the important necessary condition that is required by a developing embryo, right? So, I hope this much is clear, that now we will study about the types of seeds depending upon whether a seed has endosperm or not. But not to forget, the objective of forming the endosperm was to help or to form embryo, right? So, this endosperm was required during the developmental stages of the embryo. But if the endosperm still persists, in the seed, it will be known as endospermic, and if it doesn't, then it will be known as non-endospermic seeds. So, based on this only, presence and absence of endosperm, let us understand what are the various types of seeds that exist and that are also given in your NCERT, right? So, the very first type or the categorization of the seeds that we need to understand is albuminous seeds. What it is? Albuminous seeds. So, when we talk about albuminous seed, what are the albuminous seed? They retain a part of endosperm in them. Remember, right now, few minutes back, I explained you what is an endosperm or why an endosperm is produced. Endosperm is produced to help the developmental stages of embryo. But even after the embryo is fully developed, even after the formation of a fully matured embryo, there is still presence of endosperm in the cell, then that particular endosperm in the seed, then that particular seed will be known as albuminous seed. So, what are albuminous seed? That retain a part of endosperm in them, right? And the examples are obvious: wheat, maize, barley and castor. I request you students, please note down, remember this. These examples, these are of prime importance. Again and again, there is a history in NEET that there are questions getting repeated where they ask you the examples, right? What are the examples of endospermic seed? What are the examples of albuminous seeds? Or in which of the following plant seeds endosperm will be present in the seed? So, it is wheat, it is maize, barley, and the last image is of castor seed, right? I hope this much is clear. Let us see the next type. The next is non-albuminous, and as non-albuminous also you can say you can also say them as Ex-albuminous. Ex-albuminous seeds. So, see students, what are Ex-albuminous seeds? Ex-albuminous seeds are those seeds in which endosperm will not persist, right? Endosperm will not persist or will not be present inside them. There is no residual endosperm in these seeds. An example is pea and ground, and again examples holds prime importance as far as your NEET as far as your NEET exam is concerned. See, I want to explain you this thing again because it is very, very important on the request of one of my students. Let us understand what albuminous seed is. Just a recap I am giving you. See students, till now we have studied two types of seeds. One is the albuminous seeds, another is non-albuminous seed. Listen to this now very carefully. I am giving you just a brief recap, a revision of the two types of seeds. One category is albuminous seed, another category is non-albuminous seed. What are albuminous seeds? Albuminous seeds are those seeds in which endosperm will not persist. Albuminous seeds are those seeds in which part of endosperm will persist. Now let us see the reason. Why in such albuminous seeds a part of endosperm persists? Because during the developmental stages of the embryo, the entire endosperm was not consumed, and hence a part of endosperm got retained inside such seed, and such seeds are known as albuminous seeds, the one that has a part of endosperm in them. Now let us see what was non-endospermic seeds or non-albuminous seeds. Both are the names given to them. So what are non-albuminous seeds? Non-albuminous seeds or ex-albuminous seeds are those seeds in which endosperm will not be present in a mature seed. So let us see what is the reason why, right? Exactly what is the reason because of which in these non-albuminous or ex-albuminous seeds there is no endosperm, because the endosperm was entirely consumed by the developing embryo during its developmental stages, and hence there is no persistent endosperm in the mature seed. I hope now this much is clear to all of you. No residual endosperm. Is this clear now? Is there anyone who want me to repeat it again? Let me know. Okay, now this is the third category, students. This is the third category of seed we need to understand, and that is perispermic seed. Yes, perispermic seed. So what are perispermic seeds? Perispermic seeds are those seeds in which remnant of nucellus is found. What? In some seeds, remnant of nucellus is also persistent. So before you people get this category, or before you people confuse this category with the already discussed category, let me tell you something, that this type of seeds is based on nucellus, right? There is a difference. Here we are talking about nucellus. Albuminous seeds and non-albuminous seeds were categorized on the basis of presence and absence of endosperm. Albuminous has or they retain a part of endosperm, and non-albuminous do not retain any part of endosperm in the mature seed. That categorization finishes there only on the basis of presence and absence of endosperm. When we talk about perispermic seed, we are actually focusing on the nucellus part. Yes students, what is nucellus? Nucellus is a part of an ovule, right? In the cells of the nucellus, if you remember, there was presence of reserve food material, right? I hope if you attended my lecture, you must be clear about what nucellus is and where it is present. So nucellus is actually part of a ovule, right? So there are some seed, example black pepper and beet are such plants whose seeds contain persistent nucellus, or some part of the nucellus get retained in the mature seed. So I repeat myself students, what are perispermic seeds? These are the seeds in which remnant of nucellus is persistent. What is remnant of nucellus? The left out part of nucellus is persistent. You can see that This residual persistent nucellus is known as perisperm, and hence the seeds that contain this perisperm, this remnant part of the nucellus, right, are termed as perispermic seed. And again the examples holds prime importance. Black pepper and beet are the examples of perispermic seed. Tell me, is this clear? Perispermic, what are perispermic seeds? Example is black pepper and beet, and in these seeds there is persistent nucellus is seen, and this persistent nucellus is known as perisperm, right? And such seeds which contain perisperm are known as perispermic seeds. I hope this much is clear to all of you. Okay students, so now we come to the end of this lecture. Let me give you a brief recap what we did in today's lecture. In today's lecture we discussed about seed, about the facts of seed, how a seed look like, what are the major parts in a typical seed, and then we did a categorization, right? We categorize seeds on the basis of presence and absence of endosperm. We categorized it into albuminous and non-albuminous, and later the last category which we saw was perispermic seed, and it was based on the persistence of remnant of nucellus. That means nucellus is retained in these perispermic seeds as a remnant, right? Is there any doubt? Please let me know, otherwise I would love to conclude the session, students. Okay, as far as I can see there are no doubt, that means okay. Thank you students for joining my session. That's all from today's class.